Welcome to Infidelity Love, where passion meets forbidden desires. Love isn't always black and white. Sometimes it lives in the shadows of temptation. Welcome to Infidelity Love, the ultimate channel for gripping romance, deep emotions, and untold stories of love, betrayal, and passion. From forbidden affairs to heart-wrenching choices, we bring you addictive, emotional, and suspenseful love stories that will keep you hooked from start to finish. Subscribe now and step into a world where love isn't always perfect, but it's always unforgettable.
Nobody in my town ever stayed in room 17 at the old Hillcrest Inn. It was an unspoken rule, one everyone seemed to obey without question. Travelers who passed through were always given other rooms, even if it meant shuffling guests around. The locals would simply shake their heads and mutter, "Some doors are better left closed." But I wasn't from here. I was just a visitor, passing through on my way to a new job in a city far away. By the time I reached the inn that night, exhausted from driving for hours, every room was taken, except room 17. The innkeeper, an old woman named Mrs. Hargrove, stared at me with pale, tired eyes when I insisted. "Are you sure you want that room, dear?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just need a place to sleep," I replied with a tired smile. She hesitated, then slid the key across the counter. "Don't open the mirror cabinet after midnight," she murmured. I laughed it off, assuming it was some old superstition, and carried my bag upstairs. Room 17 was like any other, plain, a little dusty, with faded wallpaper and a single lamp by the bed. The only thing that stood out was a large, antique mirror fixed to the wall opposite the bed. Its frame was made of dark, cracked wood, and its glass seemed too clean, as if someone had polished it obsessively. I unpacked, took a shower, and settled into bed. By the time midnight came, I was half asleep, but something made me open my eyes. A soft knock, not at the door, at the mirror. I sat up, my heart pounding. The room was silent. Maybe it was a branch outside or the wind. Then, another knock. Two, this time, coming from inside the mirror. I forced myself to get up, crossing the room on trembling legs. As I stood before the glass, my reflection stared back, pale, frightened, mirroring my every move. But then, it smiled, and I didn't. My reflection lifted a hand and pointed toward the cabinet below the mirror. A small, faded note was taped to the wooden handle. "Open me." Against every instinct screaming inside my head, I reached down and slowly opened the cabinet. Inside was a small, worn notebook, and on the first page, written in jagged, hurried handwriting, "If you're reading this, you've already let it in." My hands trembled as I held the old notebook. The room felt colder, the air thick with something unseen. I flipped to the next page. The handwriting was messy, as though written by someone in a hurry or terrified. "Do not look into the mirror after midnight. If you see it, do not speak. If it speaks to you, run." I swallowed hard. A soft scratching sound filled the room. I glanced up. The reflection was still there, but something was wrong. My reflection was no longer matching my movements. It tilted its head slowly, eyes narrowing. Then its lips moved. "You shouldn't have opened it." I staggered back, the notebook falling from my hands. The scratching sound grew louder, like nails on glass. The reflection pressed its hand flat against the inside of the mirror, its fingers long and twisted. The surface of the mirror rippled like water. Then, a single, pale finger pointed to the far corner of the room. I hesitated, heart pounding, and turned my head slowly. There was a second mirror there, a small, handheld one on the dresser I hadn't noticed before. In its reflection, someone was standing right behind me, tall, shadowed, its face hidden in a blur of darkness. I spun around, nothing. The room was empty, but when I looked back at the handheld mirror, it was still there. Closer now. I grabbed the notebook from the floor, desperate to find some kind of answer. The next page was smeared with what looked like dried blood, but the words were still visible. "The only way out is to find the missing piece. If you stay until dawn, it takes your name. You become part of the mirror." A sudden knock at the door made me jump. "Room service," a voice called. A woman's voice, soft and calm. But I hadn't ordered anything. And there was no one else in the inn. Mrs. Hargrove had said I was the only guest tonight. The voice spoke again, this time right by my ear. "You forgot to invite me in." I dropped the notebook, every instinct inside me screaming to run. I reached for the room key and bolted toward the door. But when I tried to open it, the key wouldn't turn. The scratching behind me turned into knocking, then pounding, coming from every mirror in the room, even the tiny one in my pocket. And from inside the notebook, a final warning: if you hear your name, it's too late. Then, a voice, soft and cold, whispered from the mirror, "Eli." I froze. The voice was unmistakable. It wasn't just calling a name, it was my name, Eli. But how did it know? I hadn't told anyone here my name, hadn't spoken to anyone but Mrs. Hargrove at check-in. My heart thudded against my ribs so hard it hurt. The pounding from the mirrors grew louder. The big one on the wall, the handheld one on the dresser, even a small shard of glass by the sink. Every reflective surface in that room trembled like it was alive. "Eli, let us in." I covered my ears and staggered to the door again, fumbling with the key. It wouldn't budge. The lock felt like it had fused, the metal icy and unyielding beneath my fingers. I was trapped. Then, in the corner of my eye, I saw movement. The mirror, the reflection of myself, was gone. In its place stood a figure, tall, gaunt, skin stretched too tight over its bones. Its eyes were sunken holes, but its mouth stretched into a grin so wide it split its face. And in its hand, it held my reflection by the throat. I could see myself, pale and struggling, inside the glass, silently mouthing one word: help. A low, rattling chuckle came from the thing. The notebook at my feet snapped open by itself, pages flipping furiously before stopping. A final warning scrawled in fresh ink: break the mirror before dawn or be lost forever. Lightning cracked outside the window. I grabbed the heavy lamp beside the bed and, without thinking, hurled it at the big mirror on the wall. It shattered with a deafening crash. The air in the room shifted instantly. The pounding stopped. The other mirrors trembled, their surfaces distorting like liquid, and one by one, the reflections inside them began to melt away into inky blackness. The figure's grin faltered, its grip loosening on my reflection, which stared at me with wide, terrified eyes. But before the last piece of the shattered mirror hit the floor, something else crawled out of the darkness behind my reflection. A second figure. It reached forward, and just before the mirror shattered completely, it pressed a blood-stained hand against the glass and whispered a name I didn't recognize. "Catherine." Then the mirror broke apart. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The room was silent now. No pounding, no whispers, just the sound of my own ragged breathing. But something told me it wasn't over. From the corner of the room, the handheld mirror lay intact. And in its reflection, the figure was still there, smiling, waiting. And then, it spoke again. "We'll see you soon, Eli." The reflection of the figure in the small handheld mirror stared back at me, its grotesque grin still stretched across its face. Its eyes were hollow pits, and I could feel the weight of its gaze pressing into my chest. "We'll see you soon, Eli," it whispered again, its voice a cold, serpentine hiss. I couldn't take my eyes off it. The room around me seemed to blur and twist, the air thick with a sense of impending doom. The walls, once solid, began to shimmer like water, as though the very fabric of reality was starting to tear apart. I grabbed the mirror, my hands shaking. The figure inside grinned wider, its hands coming up to press against the glass from the inside, as if trying to break free. I had to get out. I had to break free. But where could I go? The door was still locked, and now it felt like the very room itself was closing in on me. Suddenly, a voice broke through the suffocating silence. "Leave the mirror. It's not for you." I spun around, heart racing. Mrs. Hargrove stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes wide with something like fear. Regret? She stepped inside without asking, her hand reaching for the mirror. "You've seen too much, Eli. Now there's no going back." I stepped back. "What is this? What is room 17? She sighed, her shoulders slumping as though the weight of centuries hung upon her. Room 17 was built over the remnants of an old ritual. A mirror isn't just glass, Eli. It can hold souls, reflections, lost pieces of people who've wandered too close to the truth. People who've looked too long. The watchers, they were once like you, curious and blind. My mind raced, and my pulse thundered in my ears. The people inside the mirrors, are they trapped? Mrs. Hargrove nodded gravely. Those who look too long are pulled in. Their reflections become part of the glass. The longer you look, the more pieces of you become trapped in the mirrors, a piece of your soul with every glance. The room felt colder as the whispers of the watchers grew louder. But there's a way to escape, isn't there? I asked, voice trembling. She hesitated, then looked at me with sorrowful eyes. Yes, but it's dangerous. You must destroy the mirror that holds the reflection. That will free them. But not before the reflection takes what it needs. I turned toward the handheld mirror, the figure still there, smiling, waiting, its fingers now pressed to the glass as though it could feel my every movement. It was clear now, the watchers weren't just trapped. They were feeding, growing stronger, using my fear, my curiosity, my very essence to survive. I had to make a choice. I lunged forward and slammed the mirror against the wall, smashing it into 1,000 pieces. The room shook violently, the walls cracking, and the glass splintered into sharp fragments. In that moment, everything went silent. For a brief second, the air felt clean. The shadows receded. But then, I heard a low growl. The figure in the mirror wasn't gone. Its form now hovered in the air, its twisted grin still etched on its face. It reached toward me with long, clawed fingers. And before I could react, it whispered, "Eli, your reflection is never truly gone." The room twisted one final time. The last thing I remember was Mrs. Hargrove's voice, soft and sad. "Some things cannot be destroyed, they only wait and return." Moral lesson: curiosity, while a gift, can lead us to places where we are not meant to go. Some doors should never be opened, for they hold more than just secrets. They can hold parts of our very soul, pieces of ourselves that, once lost, are almost impossible to reclaim. Sometimes, the best path forward is the one we choose not to follow.
Thank you for watching. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching and supporting my videos. Your time, your comments, and your love mean everything. Every view, like, and share keeps this channel alive, and I couldn't do it without you. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps bring even more passionate, emotional, and unforgettable love stories to life. Stay tuned for more drama, romance, and unexpected twists. Until next time, keep loving, keep feeling, and keep watching. Much love, infidelity, love.